I love that the very first thing on here is like do whiff analysis. I love that. Not a hello, how you doing today, CBS? Nothing. Just bam. Hits it with the chart whiff right now. Good evening, good evening. Sup, CBS, whiff, please, though. I don't know, man. I mean, like, we want to talk runes primarily. Plus, if I switch to trading view now, I'm just going to like flashbang everyone. So this is about the darkest that the stream is going to be. So we're going to chat some runes, chat about the space in general. Anybody, it's like an open forum. If you want to ask questions about runes, you're not really sure about runes, you might have over the course of the last week seen a little bit more discussion kind of on the space in general. So if you've got any questions and kind of want to discuss things, then this is the opportunity to do so. So no one's going to take the piss out of you here for asking something you may deem a stupid question. So please feel free to ask away, and I'll do my best to answer. My dead bags have been revived. Yeah. Yeah, I run Magic Eden in dark mode. I don't even know if there's a change here. I mean, most places do, right? But you know, I definitely can't load up Trading View now. Maybe I'll just do it. You know, if chat gets a bit too rowdy, bam, just Trading View. Can you increase the screen quality? It's blurry. I'm pretty sure that's going to be your connection. I don't know though. If it's a problem, then other people let me know and I'll look. But oh, it's fixed. Okay, cool. All right, good. All right, yeah. So we've seen a pretty aggressive run up on kind of a lot of projects in the rune space over the course of the last week, 2 weeks. And probably like hitting the mind share a lot more over the course of the last 7 days. I think Bonk Guy is somebody that probably straddles the two sides pretty well in terms of like rune side and then general crypto Twitter side. And obviously given his history as well, I think there's a lot of kind of attention paid to whatever he says. And I know that he's been discussing runes in kind of a way that's bringing it to a different side of crypto Twitter, not just kind of the BTC runes communities that are already well aware of the situation on that side. And I think you've also got people like Moon as well. And Moon is somebody who, you know, was kind of playing around with runes, started to relook at the space. And again, is a very good person in terms of straddling the two communities. Favorite soul influencer streaming on X now? Yeah. It's fucking wild, man. I want to be involved on the WADDLE side of things. Yeah, man. You know there's always space. There's always space. Soul influencer is wild, though. That's a wild tag. Really is. All right, so any questions that we get kind of along the way, we will we'll pick those up and we'll run with them. Otherwise, we'll just kind of like flick through some of the projects, discuss them in a bit more detail, to kind of give people an idea of, you know, kind of where we sit currently, in terms of like top projects is like relatively loose. Of course, there are definitely some like standout projects on runes. You've got like BDC, you've got Pups, so $1 Billion Cat, Pups, great big projects. And then you've got a lot of stuff that kind of fits within what is probably like a runes top 10 at this moment in time. And I think just like any kind of meme market in general, I would expect that list to change a lot. You know, I would like to think that maybe we're starting to get some of kind of the blue chips established. especially given the price action that we've seen on a lot of these markets, you know, kind of hanging around the lows for a significant length of time, starting to see momentum and starting to move back to the upside. Billion Dollar Cat is a good example of this, in terms of what we see kind of on the daily time frame, pushing right back up to the former highs here that were set in June. So, you know, doing very well in terms of the strength off the lows, already up here, already like a 6x up from the lows more. And it's probably close to an 8, right? And, you know, trading into a really good territory through here as well. So Billion Dollar Cat is one of the larger projects that are in this space, sort of by market cap. And obviously, I'm sure a lot of people are aware of Pups as well. Pups here at 150 mil. And Pups chart as well being one that kind of gives us that classic meme coin drawdown, desperation, it's all over, suddenly positivity, momentum returns to the market, moving back higher. So Pups and Billion Dollar Cat are kind of like your kind of nice, big, juicier markets in the space. But this space is very small in terms of liquidity. Markets can move very quickly, very aggressively without a lot of liquidity. And the way that the process is done still via kind of where we are right now is done through buying lots. And so you can see if I go over to BDC here, you can see that you're basically just buying lots here. So you're just buying what you want to buy at the price you want to buy. And a lot of these markets, like I said, liquidity is not necessarily a problem, but it operates in a different way to Uniswap. We're not just moving straight over and just hitting like market buy and then that's it, right? We now have the option for bids, which is great. Nice little update by ME, but we're not in a position where it's kind of like this Uniswap super liquid moving back and forth between different markets, cashing out, etc. Now there are positives and negatives to this system, right, and to this liquidity. But that's why we've seen very aggressive moves in this market, and we've seen some of the projects move from the levels that they were at into where they are now. Yeah, and Dog. Yeah, Dog. Dog's another massive one. Yeah. Shame on me for putting Dog in like behind Billion Dollar Cat and Pups, right? But yeah, Dog, massive one. Rune number 3, 380 million market cap. And again, I would say probably Dog is universally the most recognized rune in existence, probably. Can you comment on Arsic? Well, I think Arsic's a very interesting one, because Arsic breaks from the meme into the serious. And I think the chart, if you were just asking for like a TA overview of this, I think it looks very attractive. Because I think this looks, this here looks as though basically it's looking to make the move that the other markets have done. BDC is now 6 out of all cat coins. Is that true? Nice job. Really nice job. So I think Arsic looks good. But again, it's like it kind of falls into a different side of things on the runes perspective. It's not, doesn't fit into that category of meme. And what dominates this typically are kind of like meme-based things or add-ons to memes. Fair play, son. I mean, everything's on point with BDC. Like, they look great. Like, the memes are good. Like, everything looks great. Is Binance listing going to be top? Well, I mean, like, the news was circulating yesterday that Binance were considering listing runes. Again, you know, what level of truth is involved in that is whatever. But with the liquidity on some of these, I think that's like a really interesting zone anyway. Because one of the things about runes is that a lot of Runes projects are done with like a fair launch system. And by a fair launch system, it's basically just kind of like pushed out there. Anybody can mint it. Right? It's a little bit like kind of like the NFT process. And I'll keep referring back to a more simplistic language for those who are newer. But you've basically got a situation where you're minting your runes. And a lot of projects have done fair launches. They've done kind of, they just push out the project. You can mint, you know, in whatever quantity, sometimes capped per transaction, and that's it. The problem with that approach is that when it comes to like exchange listings, like exchanges require liquidity. They're going to require liquidity in order for the books to be populated and for them to be able to operate that market. And so that inherently for a lot of runes will be a problem, because a lot of runes, although the fair launch system works great from like a meme perspective, because you can be comfortable that nobody owns 30% of the supply and they're going to dump it on you, it does have concerns on the liquidity side of things when it comes to listing these at major exchanges. How are we? How early are we still? I would say you're very, very early still to this space. You're very early to this space in general. So, you know, everything's been ticking over since like April this year, and the space has been very quiet. But I would say in general, you're still very much early to this process. And it's a super exciting process as well. Like, I think that this space in general is kind of like a chilled meme trading experience. And the reason that it's chilled is because there's a limited selection of markets. Now, yes, of course, there are going to be markets that are tiny market cap currently that will rise towards being higher market cap projects. But what this does, what the rune space does, which is really nice, is it allows a little bit more focus. You've got runes that are on this list that still have a lot of potential for upside, still have a lot of potential for future developments and, you know, the direction that they go in, and especially if liquidity concerns can be eased. So there's like a ton of stuff here that narrows down like a meme coin list. You haven't got like a pump.fun that's just shooting out thousands upon thousands of tickers all the time. You've got a relatively solid list of kind of, you know, top 10 runes, for example, that you could trade. Is this the Waddle Waddle meeting? Like, of course, I would love to sit here and tell you to buy the project that I'm involved with, right? But the purpose of this discussion is really just broader. I just want to discuss runes in general. But yeah, like, yeah, Waddle Waddle meeting, sure. How are you making Waddle a blue chip? Well, I think from like Waddle's perspective. So again, just for like clarity for everybody, when I talk about this, I'll give a little bit of backstory on this project, because if I talk about Waddle, I want people to understand why I'm talking about Waddle, and so they don't get any kind of like wrong impressions about this. First and foremost, you are free to do with your money and your capital whatever you see fit without the influence of anybody else. Waddle is a project that I took over in May of this year and is a runes project. Kind of, I was excited about the space, so I was kind of around during launch and had previously been in the ordinal space and kind of done a lot of back and forth in the ordinal space, and runes was on the horizon, so I was sticking around and playing some more on that side. The market, for people who remember, the ordinal side was very good back then. It was, you know, kind of experiencing its bull run. And I took over Waddle from Farmer Joe, who is a creator of pups. It was a project that he minted and created, and I actually was involved. I actually managed to mint some. I kind of like really liked the ticker, and I got wind of the fact that Farmer Joe was involved, and so I minted during that first release. And then basically what happened was it was kind of left to one side by Farmer Joe. Obviously, there's a number of things that he has to work on, including a incredibly huge project in pups. And we had a discussion back and forth over the course of several days. And I basically said, look, I've never done this before. I think I'd kind of like to try and take the reins on it, you know, and see what I can do with it. Because I think the name is cool. I think it had the right vibes. And I wanted to try and run with it. So he said, "Yep, go for it, all yours. You know, let's see what happens." So I am now kind of the leader in Waddle Waddle Pengu, and in terms of kind of how we're looking at making it a blue chip, I can't say a huge amount because we're still very much in the process of completing the work that we want to complete from a team perspective before it's pushed out to kind of public visibility. And I've always said from, you know, inside the Discord there, when there is concrete news that I feel as though I don't have to do like the Justin Sun announcement of an announcement, then I feel as though I'm in a comfortable position to share it. And again, my intention isn't to get people hyped up or being like, oh shit, there's something huge coming. Like, it's a big change for the project. It will absolutely be a big change for the project. But again, it shouldn't be influencing kind of anything that you're thinking about from that perspective. So we've had a very good rally up, right? We've been moving from, you know, around like the 2 sats over here. And we've had a very strong recovery and movement to the upside, which is great. But again, like all of our work is kind of to come, which is the really nice thing kind of for it. Yeah, 100%, Joe. Like, thank you, number one, for responding on Twitter. It's very much appreciated. And yeah, absolutely. It wasn't like you'd made it and then pushed it to one side, never to be touched. Yeah, you're absolutely correct. But I know that you had your thoughts about coming back. And then I think, if I remember correctly, like there was like a bit of shit with pups that kind of developed right around the time I was basically asking as well. And so, yeah, so that I know probably impacted you, at least in the short term, in your decision making. That certainly your work was cut out for you and ramped up suddenly. Sidechains on BTC. Yeah, the sidechain discussion, like I've had multiple conversations with like on the sidechain piece of things. And I think that's a really interesting angle. I don't know if it's the right angle. Like when I look at it simply, I'm just like, well, it's just ETH, right? And I know that it's more detailed than that, but if I boil it down to like the retarded view, that's the way I view it. And I don't know if that's the path. And I think certainly from kind of like a waddle perspective, I think we would absolutely need to see a serious uptick in usage and a real reason to want to do any sort of migration versus where we are and establishing where we are. Because again, even on that side, you know, we're still well off where the aims of the project will be. So, you know, kind of from my side, that's where it is. Putz went from a side quest to the main deal. Yeah. I'm very excited to see you take this on in your own style when it gets more chaotic and larger. Yeah, man, honestly. Like even the discussions today, right? The discussions today with the dude, the schizo that was like popping off. I was like, man, is this what people have to do? Like, do you have to like deal with these people? Because like I've never been in this role. I'm just like, do I respond to this? Like, yeah, infra is still very primitive. Agreed. 100%. It's one of the things that we've said. Like, what's your conviction that runes will gain popularity and not fade away? I think we've had our fade away period. I think that the fade away period was over the last couple of months. And from my perspective, I think that runes holds the same core, like I still hold the same core beliefs in runes that I did back on initial launch to where I do now, which is that the BTC space is huge. It's a monstrous space, and a lot of people overlook just how big it is. And especially when you start looking at the markets over in Asia, the BTC mindshare is actually pretty significant. And we also know, especially from a crypto Twitter perspective, there's one very easy thing that draws people into a new space, and that is rapidly increasing prices. And so as soon as we get a market that begins to perform, we then start to see natural migration towards that market as people want to participate and seek value in that area. And so from my side of things, I think, you know, it's an area that green candles will produce popularity. And then from that popularity, it's going to be important about what takes place there. So how do we hold people in runes? And hopefully that's not from becoming bag holders and price going down, right? That's from the rune space being the right environment, doing the right things, advancing in the right way. And so it becomes, you know, an area that people want to dedicate time to. And even when you sort of compartmentalize people in the current position where they're like, they might be Sol meme coin traders, or they might be ETH meme coin traders, or this is just another avenue for them. It's another avenue for people to explore. Calls on Bitcoin go from being best friends to your worst nightmare in 5 minutes. Good to know, man. That's good to know. So when I start treading around more, then I'll remember that. Future catalysts for runes include smart contracts on Bitcoin to create a fluid UX with things such as Arch Network. Joe, I'm glad you're here, man. Do you wanna come on? Maybe next week? Do you wanna come on and chat? Be cool to have you. Yeah, no centralized exchange listings on runes yet is another major factor. Yeah, and that was another major factor of course, both sides of things. Participation now reflects, and then participation in the future, obviously impact of any listings. And I think probably the kind of universally agreed listing would probably be dog at this point. Okay, nice. Yeah, awesome. Thank you, man. I will absolutely ping you, and you can come on and we can shoot the shit for an hour or 30 minutes or whatever works for you. I'm sure people would love to hear more stuff about pups anyway. I'm just going to throw the warning out there. Just be careful clicking links. I'm going to take benefit of the doubt that it is for the right reasons, just safety side of things. Any ETA for the things you're waiting to share? Yeah, so I'm hoping at the end of this week. And basically what's going to happen is once everything is confirmed and I'm happy with what has been shared, we'll basically go on like a 7-day process for communicating that information. Okay, so like just while we switch back to kind of the WADDLE discussions, that conversation and communication process will take place over 7 days. And it kind of more will be revealed over the course of that. Just got in. What are the top 3 runes? Well, as I said, we kind of covered off probably the biggest of big boys at the start, which is $1 billion cat, Doggo to the Moon, and pups. I think that's kind of where you're looking at in terms of your major runes at this point in time. And then there are a range of runes that basically sit from position number 4 all the way down to position number 10, and they are very much interchangeable at this moment in time. Like I said, the one thing that's great about this space is that there's still a ton of opportunity, right? Like even with the big boys. Like I talk about the big boys and we're talking about, 70 million for $1 billion cat. I mean, even the fact we're talking about pups at the level that it's at. All right, 158. And again, I kind of gave that blue chip logic at the start, and they are certainly the 3 that are cementing themselves in that position. But like Joe mentioned in the discussion, no centralized exchange listings yet. And if that starts to happen and these start to open up in a more natural form to other people to be able to come in and to be able to trade, I think, again, even at these valuations, they're still cheap. I bought pups at 40. Am I cooked? Been holding for months. I don't know, man. We're on the way back, right? We're on the path. Yeah, wizard migrating. Like the wizard conversation is a difficult one as well. I saw like the screenshot being shared the other day about like wizard on runes. Yeah, and like again, I love wizard. I think the meme is great, right? And OG stuff as well. So looking forward to that. Why should I buy Pengu? I'm not. Despite the name, I'm not really here to kind of like show you on that. The only thing that I would say kind of in that regard is that we've got something that's pretty unique in terms of the community at WADDLE, in that we don't actually have a huge amount of native BTC people in the community. One of the other things that I kind of find great about WADDLE is that we have essentially held at around 2,500 holders throughout the entire life cycle of WADDLE. Which, considering the drawdown on this, considering, the drawdown of what was achieved here, is a pretty impressive stat to still maintain. And then I think when you couple that with the fact that the project itself is now starting to see that upswing, that's a super positive thing. And again, I don't want to make it a WADDLE stream, but not the last thing I'll say, it depends on if there's any questions, but the thing that I'll mention about this is that when I started to really think about the direction that WADDLE was going to take, the very first video that I recorded talked about the fact the community had to be, essentially very strong. And despite price going down to the level at which it went down, the numbers stayed the same. And for me, that was like a very good show of the fact that either all of the bag holders are old like me and therefore they've passed away and the suppliers are essentially burnt, or that they were happy that at some point we would start to see the runes turn around and that WADDLE would still be something that could spin into a positive for them. That phase 1 of me taking over was all about kind of the community creation and making sure that we had the right holders, basically. Can you share your confidence in runes in general by letting us know what percentage of your portfolio is allocated to them? I mean, like from an overall percentage of my portfolio, I don't have a huge amount of exposure crypto wide in general at the moment, just because of the market conditions and where we are. So I don't have a huge amount of crypto exposure. The majority of my stuff is still, unfortunately, for conversation purposes on TradFi. So I'm like the ultimate anti crypto at the moment, when I'm like, yeah, I'm invested in the TradFi side of things. But yeah, I mean, it's just a better market right now, unfortunately. I'd love to be able to say it's like 100% exposure in crypto, but it's just not the state of the market. Okay, you say same? Okay, nice. Fine. Marked safe. And again, if there's any questions from anybody who wants to kind of ask about runes, then more than happy to do that. If there's any projects you want to kind of, have a rundown of, then yeah, we're absolutely free to do that. As I said, it's not a come and join me and hear me talk about WADDLE. Yeah, the stream will be replayable, Barrett. Yeah, we'll make sure that that's going to be there, and we'll make this a regular thing as well. Whether or not we're just kind of like chatting and bringing some guests on, as I said, if Joe's coming on, I know that Owl wants to come on as well. So we'll have some guests as well from the rune space, which will be really cool. It'd be really nice to have people with me. I'm such a solo streamer that it will be nice to, apart from the occasional appearance from Cred, tends to just be the solo stream. Mr. Yen is another interesting project as well, and something that has discussed in a big way the transition or moving into other spaces with the migration. So this is a really interesting one. This is one that, at the start of things, this would easily have been inside that top 5 category. Yeah, Mr. Yen has great videos, funny name. Yeah, like, no problems at all. Thoughts on Wizard? Kind of covered it before, but I think it has a lot of potential. And as I said, I think that given the context of what that stands for historically, I think it's very powerful. What are your thoughts on BIP, Based Internet Panda? Yeah, again, another very, very cool project. Same as Psycho Hamster. Like, these two are really kind of like nice. They're like hand in hand. Little bit edgy, very good meme creation out of both sources. Incredibly good intern over at Psycho Hamster. Two very good projects that are sitting around this kind of 6 to 10 million market cap range. I think both the community on this side of things, although it's a newer project, I think it's like a June launch. Yeah, so like end of June launch. Very, very strong. Community side is very good for it, and the same with Psycho. Cats in the Sats, man. All right. So I will phrase this as, I think that's an opportunity market. I think that Cats in the Sats is an opportunity market. I think that there's a trickle-down effect from BDC. I think that Cats in the Sats nailed it when it came to the name. I think they absolutely nailed the name. And I know that, again, that community-wise, production-wise, really hasn't ceased. It hasn't let up. So I view that market entirely as an opportunity market. The chart is actually pretty disgusting as well. But that is a very positive sign. This was the pinnacle. Like, I remember this run up. You think that Pup's Rune will do better than Puppet Ordinals on an MCAP basis during Mania? I would suspect that the token side would do better. Just because of wider participation, and especially if we get future developments in terms of listings, etc. Hello, Curden. Welcome. Wanko Manko is also an OG. Like, this is also an OG rune. And again, showing very good signs down here in terms of movement. The the market cap kind of like sizing for some of this, like I said, you know, on the basis that everything doesn't go to shit and we get some sort of black swan event that happens crypto-wide. I think that when you look at these markets here and you think about, you know, kind of asking the question on how early am I to this, and is there value for me here, or basically, you know, am I going to be getting dumped on as soon as I, you know, the fact that CBS is streaming runes is like, oh shit, maybe this is like dump territory, maybe like short-term correction, yes, but when it comes to kind of like longer term value, you have to remember that like what the participation level is here in this market. Like when you look at like Dog that has 91,000 holders, and then a lot of these other projects that are sitting around like the 1,800 mark, like the participation levels are still very, very small in this market in general. And we said this all the way back in kind of the initial runes period when we were discussing prices going down and, you know, what that meant. And, you know, one of the big things is just the participation levels. And we're starting to see that creep up. We're starting to see more discourse that's taking place on both sides of Twitter, runes and general crypto Twitter. It's like a lot of this shit is still essentially hyper undervalued to where it can potentially get to should we start to see the continuation of the numbers increasing. Yeah, people forget that runes are denominated in Bitcoin, so when BTC appreciates, so do the value on runes. And I think that's also a nice part as well. That's like whenever anybody's ever traded before, and historically you would used to trade on like MEX and would get paid out in BTC. You also have this like accumulation of BTC through the trading process, which again is also quite nice. Yeah, I think that's a very good point, man. The true stacking sats here through trading. Arsic or $1 billion cat? Very good question. I think both for different reasons. If it's one or the other, I think if you're believing of the technical side of things, I think that Arsic has probably a better technical setup for upside, given that BDC is already run. However, if you're more interested in the meme side of things, and as I said, BDC are killers at what they do. Their content is phenomenally good. Then that's probably your avenue. You think Binance will list Dog one day? Almost certainly. Almost certainly. just joins in with an October or nah. I mean, indexes are doing all right. If we want to like have the quick trading talk, indexes are doing all right. Leonidas is a master. He's a master, and he'll get that listed. Just join the live. Welcome. Where do we see runes going this run? I think that the success of the rune side is measured in two things. The first thing is obviously prices increasing, just as the natural one from any investor or speculator in this market. And the second part of that is the mind share that it occupies. And so making sure that runes are kind of actually one of the discussed avenues for people to be trading memes. So on the price side, again, I'm still a big believer in a lot of undervaluation here in this market in general across even the top 10. I think are still grossly undervalued. And participation is low. And so I'm talking about something that's like undervalued, but also even 95% of you that are listening to this stream probably won't even bother to still go and participate in the Runes Eco. And so I think there's like an element of laziness to it as well, like learning something else, which for a lot of people is actually quite cool, right? To actually have to learn some of these things. Again, back to the earlier point, the fact that there's a restricted list of things that are considered top tier is also super helpful. Tuned in late, so not sure if talked about already, but is there any plan to possibly work in some kind of Waddle Soul bridge for a potential moonshot listing like with pups? That is something that actually Joe and I discussed way back in what that looked like and how that would potentially work. And that is something that I think from a team perspective, we are absolutely keeping the door open to, because I think it would be unwise to do that. But I think we have, and the argument back then still rings true today, which is that we still have a lot of work to do on the rune side of things before I want to start joining the swamp of Soul. Like, as soon as you go to Soul, you're competing with thousands of projects. Like, our aim at Waddle is to make sure that we are established enough within the runes space, right, to kind of almost have cemented our place, to have that strength to then be able to think about what that would look like to be elsewhere as well. But right now, I think there's still work to do on the rune side in order to, like I said, cement our place in the mind share and also in people's portfolios. Right? Like I want the kind of the basis of Waddle to be that it forms a core part of everybody's portfolio that's engaged within runes. Solar's PvP deathmatch on meth, yeah. Thanks for the reply. Makes a ton of sense. Yeah, man. It's, what's a better hold, Pups or BDC? Is Joe still here? I think they're both decent. Again, like I'll take the politician coward's way out and say that they're both decent. They both do a very good job at on the production side of things. Like BDC has the memes, so do Pups. Like I can't try and leverage off that. Pups, given the bit more history, probably edges it. Holy Grail for runes is centralized exchange listings and support, else the experience would be consistently clunky and slow. And that was the problem initially, really. Like the transaction speed that just died after runes launched. And a lot of people, you know, basically being very frustrated with the way that things panned out on that side of things. I think especially when you have multiple options in the crypto space, it's like you just come in and you start operating on BTC and utilizing runes, and suddenly you're waiting 6 hours for a transaction and then it fails. And you're just like, well, fuck this. I'll just go over to Sol and I'll just pay a fraction of a cent for a transaction fee, and it's done in 6 seconds. And so from the runes perspective, there's still work to be done on that side. And like I said, I think it put a lot of people off in that initial first week or so. Is there a tutorial for how to get on in the space and mint it, etc.? Yeah, some people have some content out there on the WADDLE page, and in the Discord we've got some material which is on buying runes. So for anybody that's looking at like minting a rune in terms of minting essentially a project, then you can do that. And then if you're looking at buying, then Magic Eden is probably your best destination. There are others, but this is probably the most, well, it is the most utilized and kind of has the cleanest UI for participating. And the process of buying, although it appears relatively complex, as I said, there is content out there for joining in on that path. On meme coins, tempted to say that the shit that pumps the hardest isn't major. How's that about runes? The same, or are the blue chips will go to the moon rather than new runes? Yeah, I mean, like, good question. Because I was talking about it the other day. I think Foundation was talking about it as well, and we were talking about the fact that, you know, I saw a very good tweet which was, you know, if this results in a fresh bull cycle for us with BTC breaking into all-time highs and beyond, then the best performing meme coins have not yet been created, probably. There'll be something that comes along. We already saw it the other day with Mudeng that comes along and suddenly it's like this absolute ripper of a chart that goes up 20,000% over the course of 24 hours, and, you know, you've missed another opportunity. With the rune space, I think it's slightly different because of the participation levels. So it's not as easy to have that generation of excitement and therefore very fast-moving market as it is when you're launching something on Sol that has easier access for everybody. I think, personally think this redemption arc solidified Rune's mind and market share. Yeah, I hope so. I think it's on that path. And I think we've got good people talking about it, and I've referred to multiple times on the stream that both sides of Twitter, because there's a very die-hard Runes community, there's a very die-hard Ordinals community, right? There's a BTC side of things, and probably a lot of people that are naturally on my side of Twitter, and when I refer to my side, I mean just like more general trading discussion, are probably unaware of just how tightly knit some of those communities are on the other side. And I think when both sides start to meet and see each other, then it's probably going to be a very positive outcome overall for the Runes space. And like I said, green candles will encourage participation, right? That's definitely a thing. Afternoon. Definitely evening. Yeah. Slow Bitcoin blocks discourage new buyers. Centralized exchange listings will help, for sure. Centralized exchange listings will be a massive catalyst. Because then also it sparks a speculative nature as well. So it's not just then the purchase of whatever has been listed. Let's say that DOG is the first one that gets major centralized exchange listings. Then we're also going to be in a situation where the speculation is going to begin on what's next, right? And therefore the preparation for moving into positions before any potential listings are done. BTC shitting the bed. Yeah, it's over. It's over. Friction liquidity issues on runes is magnified 10x on the newer L2s at the moment. That doesn't surprise me at all. At all. Yeah, I can see BTC price. 60,750 for anybody wondering. If anybody wants to panic sell at this point, that's all. All right, we'll begin to wrap up in kind of 5-10 minutes or so. So any questions, please let me know and I will answer, and then we'll get Joe on next week. We'll chat some more rune stuff. We'll see how the market's developing. We'll keep a little snapshot from where we are right now in terms of market caps, interest, etc. And hopefully we can continue to monitor that as we go forward. Daily EMA 200 at 60k. Yeah, I mean, I've already been stopped out of my long position. I tried to take a trade earlier today and got zero fucking momentum with it. Just shit immediately. So, but I did manage to short SPX, which was quite nice, and the meme coin SPX as well, not the index. I don't use moving averages in terms of placement on chart, apart from when people bring out the awesome oscillator to me and what the underlying metrics are, which I'm well aware of. But SPX was clinging beautifully to the 20 moving average and lost it for the first time today. So I don't know if that's alpha in there for anyone. Where can you short it? I'm shorting it on ox.fun. Just because I'm a degenerate piece of shit that just needs the dopamine hit of shorting the thing that everybody's discussing. And I would never usually look at shorting a market like that, but I think that all of the discussions that were taking place on Twitter today were probably net negative overall, so I decided that I'd take a stab at shorting it. Waddle, better ticker than Pengu. Thank you, man. Glad that we agreed on that. $10 billion market cap dog possible? Man, you gotta turn me into Murad here. Sol influence outed as Renko maximalist. We'd had a lot of conversations about whether or not Waddle would be preferred to Pengu. But we decided that Waddle is typically how people refer to us. So they refer to the project as Waddle. And so it just naturally fit in a little bit better. And then the follow-up question here is when Pudgy Penguin collab? And again, that's something that we've always been very careful of as a Penguin project, to make sure that actually we're not trying to leech off Pudgy. So I would never want to be in a position where we kind of we're leeching off other projects to try and, you know, steal some of their success, because Pudgy are global, right? They're monstrously massive now, which is insane. But actually what we have done is made a very clear effort to not try and leech off other things. So we've distanced ourselves from that. Waddle helps a little bit in terms of not directly going after kind of like the Pengu brand. So my wife, who doesn't get a Rolex, is a big fan of the Waddle Waddle Pengu song. Nice to be involved early with a team like this. Let's get it. Thank you, man. Sidestepping all Penguin stereotypes, apart from Waddle, right? Apart from like the core thing, yeah. But main thing is we don't want to be leechy. We don't want to be that cringe leechy fucking meme that is just, you know, like constantly in Pudgy's replies being like, hey, notice us, hey, notice us. Like, fuck it. We've got to make it on our own. We've got to have a backbone of a project, right, and the foundations of a project in order to do anything. You know, if we just have a ton of kind of like Pudgy shills that we're trying to move into, then we're fucked. Like, we'll never do anything productive. So, yeah, very, very kind of serious point that we were making. Cat narrative or dog narrative for the runes run? Both. Again, I think PopCat probably dominates in terms of upside from meme perspective, soul side. So maybe cat preference if you're going to be looking for exposure. But like we said, dog is going to achieve that Binance listing at some point. Yeah, Waddle is us. You're right. And I'll drop the Waddle Discord invite as well. So anybody wants to join, then feel free to. Let me just grab that so you can get in here. Again, if you just got like runes questions in general, community very happy to help out on that side of things. So if you do just want to kind of hop in, feel free to. That will display on Twitch, and I'll make sure that everybody on Twitter, you can get access after. I'll tweet out the invite. Mudeng is hideous? Damn, man. Some people will burn you at the stake for saying that. At this time, it's probably best to just stick to the top 20 in terms of rune investments. Yeah, like don't go for 20, right? But if you're in terms of like focusing your attention on what you might like to have, then yeah, top 20 is absolutely fine. You don't need to start going outside that, because even from 10 onwards, that list is going to change almost on a daily basis. So, you know, even top 10 is fine to stick with. If you want to kind of get a little bit more on the, let's phrase it in a British way, of like taking a punt on something, then sure, yeah, look outside the top 10 and see what you can find. All right, so let's. Runes are easy. Once you dip your toes in it, you'll like it, and it's BTC native. And if you have any questions, we can help you. Jump in the Waddle Discord. Thank you very much, Salah. Very much appreciated. And yeah, absolutely correct. I think that the space has like a weird pull on you. It's like a kind of reminds me of like early NFT stuff. So yeah, it's a cool space to be in. But a big thank you for joining me, and thank you for taking time out of your evening to hear me talk a little bit more about runes, hear me talk a little bit about Waddle. I hope that the feeling was that I covered everything in a very fair and unbiased way, but also helped provide some factual information about Waddle at the same time. Discord link is there for anybody who would like to join in. Project's available on Magic Eden for anybody. And we'll be back next week. We'll bring Farmer Joe on next week. We got Owl as well. We might bring on a couple of guests, and so we can just have like a wider discussion. But I think we set the basis now in terms of kind of the discussion here, and hopefully that we still have a strong BTC by the time that we stream again here next week. So everybody have a wonderful rest of your evening. Thank you so much for joining me, and